Hi, I'm Chad Zekiel. Welcome to Help on Demand Live. Today I'm with John Newmeyer from Help on Demand and Adam O'Leary from Insight International. And we're here to talk about how to increase your reach and self-promotion for health insurance providers as well as brokers and anyone in the health industry for that matter. And Adam's got a lot of great ideas we want to talk about today. So Adam, you want to introduce yourself
Sure.
and start to kick us off?
Sure. Adam O'Leary, Insight Branding, Marketing, and Creative. We're a full-service ad agency down here in Denver in the Rhino District, so just north of Coors Field. So as a full-service agency, we do everything from brand strategy to tactical development to all the things that you can think of from a social media or from a marketing standpoint, social media, email, content development, those kinds of things. So we can we work from clients in a variety of different industries. From consumer products to business to software to manufacturing. So as a full service agency, we feel pretty confident in that holistic kind of look at the marketing strategy or marketing plan. Yeah.
So do you have a limit on size of companies you work with or industry specific?
Yeah, no. The size, we typically focus on mid-market small business and above. So there's a lot of businesses that, from a startup perspective, we've done that in the past, but we've kind of shifted away from some of the startup realm into more of what we call mid-market small business and medium-sized business. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but as an industry, we don't focus necessarily on one particular industry. The reason being is we find that there's a lot of tactics and strategies that work in a business to business that can still work in a business to consumer environment. So we try to take those best practices and that experience and kind of translate them, across the industries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So we're here to talk about how to do some self-promotion, and it's noisy out there. There's a lot going on. So how do you, what are some strategies you look at, and then how do you help customers kind of separate themselves from the pack?
Well, it's interesting that you say separate them from the pack. That's kind of where I would first start, right? Like I would start as trying to, what is that USP, that unique selling proposition? Mm-hmm. Well, what is it that differentiates you from every other, competitor out there, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time is you start to think about what are those benefits? What's in it for the customer? We are always going to start looking customer centric. Yep. John, you and I have been talking about, what is it that are big issues for clients, right? Yeah. And what is important to them, and how do we address those rebuttals? How do we address what it is you provide for them to give us pain points? So I think it's super important to make sure that you have your USB down and making sure that your messaging is worked out, that you are addressing a pain point, you are coming through with a solution for a customer.
Is there any common pain points going on right now or anything?
Well, a lot of businesses, what it's comes down to, right? Like we need to have more brand awareness. We need more customers. We need more revenue. That's super important, right? But at the same time, we focus a lot on brand strategy as well, to making sure that your audience is dialed in, your messaging is dialed in, and where is that audience and that strategy so if your audience isn't on LinkedIn, for example, or TikTok, well, we're not using those as a tactic. Everybody has a different goal. Some are more awareness. We have some clients that we're primarily driving awareness, and then ultimately the awareness kind of helps to drive revenue and inquiries. But it comes down to that businesses do need to drive new leads, drive new revenue and to their business.
How do you think about the health industry in general? So there's a set of unique needs there, and it's a large industry. How are you seeing customers, or what would you recommend to customers to separate themselves?
Yeah, so healthcare, I think, especially healthcare insurance, right? Yeah. There's with each one of the state-run marketplaces. Mm-hmm. We've heard a lot of chatter in there that how hard it is to kind of get through some of those kinds of things, and they're kind of overwhelmed with options on what to choose. You know, so it's just like anything else, and it happens a lot in consumer products. There has to be a right mix of options for consumers, right? So if you go into a grocery store and there's too many options, you know, people get overwhelmed, right? Like I don't know what to choose. If there's not enough, well, then there's a credibility issue right there. So I remember years ago when they came out with the body spray, the Axe. Remember Axe body spray? So what happened?
I had 3 sons that went through the Axe phase. So it was just tough.
Yeah, right. But it was, it still is, right? Like it's, but at the same time, when that first came out, that there was not like a body spray for men, right? Men had deodorant and cologne, and that was it, right? So when they came out with that, there wasn't a competitor for them, right? So it never really took off until there's additional competitor in the environment, and people were saying, "Oh, well, that's something that I need, want, and can use." And it's still around today, right? So it's one of those, and you've got a variety of different ones. Not that I would use it, but I may, you know.
Of course not.
Right. But yeah, so there's definitely the healthcare industry. I definitely see a lot of, confusion on some level, right? Like, and I think that a lot of consumers need, need some direction and need some kind of personalized piece. And that's kind of one of the things about how to marketing in this industry today. A lot of that is being personal and having a personal touch.
Yeah, I was going to just ask that because when I think about healthcare, I spent a lot of time in that industry, and you match it up versus other industries. There's a lot of demand for healthcare, right?
Of course.
There's a lot of so you don't have to create awareness as much, maybe for your individual brand, but there's a need there that exists. So how do you help them maybe differentiate? Because I think a lot of people don't know enough or a lot anyway around the difference between one health insurance carrier or another, or one physician or hospital or whatever versus another. And so how do you help people create their own identity?
Yeah, I think that there's the personalization and that personal touch has to be a part of it, right? So it is such a, insurance in particular, can be super impersonal, right? Like, and
it's complicated too.
Yeah, and that's the thing is there's a lot of information out there and a lot of information to digest and make decisions on, and it's super overwhelming. So I think healthcare providers and even brokers, it's super key for that personal touch, those relationship building type of thing, and coming in, being empathetic and helpful. It goes a long way, and it's just like industries like legal and in the law industry of people are recommending you to other people as well. So it's but to differentiate themselves, there's still going to be an awareness aspect. There's still going to have to be a personal aspect. So there's a lot of moving parts to it.
Yeah, so it seems like I've heard of a lot of companies over the last 5 or 7 years really trying to leverage technology to create a more personal touch. So that it seems to be kind of opposites in some ways, but if you can put those together, a way to create emotion and trust, it seems like a winning formula.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we talk a lot about in our business is content marketing. And that's kind of one of the buzzwords of from a marketing perspective is developing out content that, and it's all over the place and we all see it, right? Like, articles, blogs, videos, things like this, right? Like is all kind of content, but it's I think it's much more important in insurance and in healthcare as a whole, simply because of the nature of how many options there are. And then if you can educate, entertain, inspire somebody, like you said, kind of make that emotional connection, you've got them as a customer. They really want to. Emotional connections in marketing are so much more powerful than just a logic.
Well, and everybody wants to purchase things different. Some still want to go in a traditional store, others want to flop online and get it, or they want this immediate connection, and then they still want a good customer experience. And a lot of times those are hard to get, but I think with everything going on in the world these days, everybody's kind of figured out a different way that says,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to go buy something from Chad, and I want to be connected to him immediately or whatever, and make those things happen. So
Yeah.
to me, it's the days of getting something in the mail and going, oh gosh, it doesn't work anymore. At least from my perspective. I
Sure.
don't know if you see that. I'm assuming most of the trends are towards social media, online purchases, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So digital marketing, what we all think of as email, social, web, where everybody kind of spends the majority of their time, mobile. I mean, we're all our mobile, our things. Obviously the marketing trends have moved there, right? So, other traditional kind of marketing avenues such as direct mail, outdoor advertising, television, marketing companies start to segment their marketing mixes there and have gone over digital for a couple of different reasons. One, it's easier to track. Like they could track how many people are coming to your site, how many is reacting to these things. Television, you could track that, but it's a little bit harder. Outdoor, how do you track other than surveys and brand awareness and all that kind of stuff? So it's a little bit harder to track. So the move to digital makes a lot of sense, but to your point, from a direct mail perspective, now there's a lot of opportunity in things like that,
Right.
because
You're the only
nobody's
one.
doing it.
Yeah.
Well, and I just know when I get stuff in the mail, I pretty much tear it up. It goes in the trash, and I think it's almost like I have a hard time believing somebody still does that. You know what I mean? And and so I'm not in your world to know statistical or stats or whatever for what's the response rate on direct mail versus other kinds of things, but I can't imagine it's that high other than filling up some landfills. You know what I'm saying? So,
Although it is nice to get something besides a bill in the mail.
well, it
Could be the one
that's true.
alternative piece of mail.
Maybe it's an Axe advertisement or
Yeah.
something. Right?
Yeah, nice little sample
Exactly.
of Axe body spray would be nice. But I think for a long time, direct mail has had a response rate which is relatively low. 1 to 2% kind of thing, right?
That's what I was.
But it's always coming down to repetition, right? It's repetition, being exposed to those messages. And, the old adage was you have to be exposed to 7 messages before you make kind of a buying decision, but you only see like 1 in 4. So if you do the math, you have to do, 28 of those, 4 times 7, 28 things before somebody could make a buying decision, that kind of thing. But so I think direct mail, what we focus on is we do direct mail for clients, and we'll do a little postcard and something, but we have some other options that we do, what are called dimensional mailers, that are like super specific, super targeted. They're more expensive, but they're definitely memorable. They definitely cut through the clutter. And if somebody follows up on some of those things, you can really kind of make that response rate can go up quite a bit. So instead of spending like $1,000 on 1,000 mailers, you could spend $1,000 on, say, 5, and you're really targeted. And there's some things that we do. It's called targeted gifting. So we try to identify our target and what they may be interested in. And then, say they're interested in fly fishing, you send them a brand new fly rod, right? And if you follow that up with a phone call or an email or whatever, they're going to remember you, right? So the goal there is to start the relationship, start to build rapport, cut through the clutter. So not to say that the 1,000 direct mail pieces is wrong. There's just other ways to use that in conjunction with other things.
So a company that is thinking about finding a multi-marketing organization kind of like yourself, what are things they should keep in mind or consider as they're kind of making those selections? Because I know me, I would have a hard time going through it. I mean, you can't just go through Google anymore and pick out one. You get about 50. So from your perspective, these companies, how would they go about selecting the right firm? Or
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different firms that specialize in different aspects of marketing. Some are digital, some are creative, some are branding. So I think you definitely have to pick one that kind of resonates with you and that you get along with personally. But our suggestion is always an integrated strategy. So things that are working in conjunction, that we're doing things in email to push event marketing, to follow that up with a direct mail, whatever that is. That's just, you're getting all those touches and you're getting all that exposure, and you're making sure that the message is consistent across all of those pieces. So you're still hitting on those benefits. Yeah.
I'm going to go back to digital marketing for a bit. I appreciate that companies can see value in that because there's an ROI that they can at least measure, right? Mm-hmm. They can get a pretty good statistical overview. If you're a healthcare provider or in the healthcare industry of some sort, how can they segment out their targets? They say, you know what, I focus on seniors, or I want to attract younger populations. How can you help them do things like that?
Well, I think audience segmentation is kind of marketing 101, right?
Yep.
Because a message you put to a senior is not the same message you do
right.
to a 21-year-old or 23-year-old college grad,
mm-hmm.
right? So they have different needs. Mm-hmm. So the thought process there is to get together with your marketing firm or your marketing people, and then really kind of just to put down on paper what those segments are. And if we're going to be, male, and the more specific you get, the more specific you can get to the message.
Your avatar?
Yeah, your avatar. Yeah, absolutely. And multiple. I mean, in healthcare, they'll have multiple targets, of course, right?
Sure.
But you need to actually have ideal customer profile is what we call it, or if people call it avatars. But you put a name and demographic and psychographics to that person, mm-hmm. so that it's like, hey, if I'm making this advertisement, this marketing piece, this email, whatever it may be, is that appealing to John Q customer, or is it appealing to Martha customer, mm-hmm. whatever that is? So it's an exercise that's I think it's pretty linear and it's pretty collaborative with an organization's executive team, marketing team, but you need to kind of come to that conclusion together, so everybody kind of is on the same page and everybody is behind that strategy.
Yeah. How do you think about promotion? So it's a complicated business in a lot of ways. What are some things, or at least considerations, people in the health industry should think about as they think about promoting, here's an event or some way to purchase or be involved with the health insurance industry? Do you have any thoughts on that? Ways to get people interested?
No, I definitely think audience comes into play, but we're always trying to do something unique, right? And something memorable. There's a lot of opportunity out there to promote things, but there's a lot of people that just aren't really doing anything that's kind of
got to move them, right?
Yeah, it's going to move them. It's going to kind of have that emotional connection. So there's nothing to be said about. There's something to be said about like just getting your face in front of folks, right? Like using multiple channels and integrated strategy is definitely key, but doing something that everybody's not doing and doing something unique is very much something I would recommend.
Yeah, I would think, it's a timely example might be how involved you might have been in, say, the vaccine movement recently, right? I think not every provider was involved. I think at least it gets people to your site potentially, or things like that. So how do you stay current and get involved with current events and current news and be a part of the story? Yeah,
I think there's something to be said about strategic planning, right? On those things, to say there's some firms that really specialize in that is making sure that if this happens, then we're going to do this. So they're trying to do scenario planning as well, saying like, hey, if there's an outbreak of certain things, well, we already have some messaging kind of written out for that. We're ready to go to
press the button,
get ads out, get commercials out, and emails, and all these kinds of different things. So there's something to be said from a scenario planning standpoint. That being said, I mean, I would have never thought that maybe for the pandemic, right? Like vaccines, but if I was in the healthcare industry, I mean, wouldn't that conversation have come up? I would think at some point, right? I mean, with Ebola and swine flu bird flu, whatever, all these other things that never came to fruition. But if I was in the healthcare industry, I would be thinking, well, what if that does happen?
Yeah,
like
what if?
we could be, helping people. And I think healthcare, has kind of obviously they're for-profit kind of companies, but at the same time, they really are helping people and saving lives and doing all these things. So they kind of have
You're in the trust. You're largely in the trust business.
Absolutely.
We've talked about that word a lot already, and I think it's an important thing to keep in mind.
What I would think in your world is different products and services. I mean, in a sense, you almost have to dummy things down, because the average consumer out there, if I'm purchasing health insurance, well, I may understand that. Chad may not. In your marketing for the organization that's got to meet those audiences, I would expect that's probably an everyday challenge for you, is to, how do I communicate a complicated topic into something simple for marketing? Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like a consumer product that you're buying shoes online, right? You're going to Zappos and you're buying a pair of shoes that you like, your size, and it's a pretty easy buying decision. I like them. They're the right price. Off we go. But in something more complicated, right? Like,
is my physician in network? Is my hospital in network?
And that is, I don't know any other market that's as complicated kind of as healthcare. And I don't see how you can really take out the personal aspect and somebody talking to somebody unless it drastically becomes simplified. But I don't know that it can.
Don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Right. So it's key for like healthcare folks to, they need to kind of think about from a business to consumer and almost a business to business type of strategy, because I think the ones that really do well have those people in there as resources that can really connect with the consumer personally, and that's kind of like very successful. I know it's very labor intensive to have all that kind of integrated, but I just don't see where it would get so ubiquitous that you're not asking questions, or you're not feeling like it's, I mean, I guess some of the exchange does that a little bit, but at the same time,
it still doesn't make it any less complicated.
For sure.
So.
I had one other thing I wanted to ask you about. We talked about, aligning with the news and creating something interesting around that. So here we are. It's a beautiful day. We were just talking before we started this about how everyone's coming out of their hole, so to speak. How do people capitalize on that from a marketing standpoint? There's a new energy and a new wave of energy.
I think in today's environment, there still has to be some message of safety, right? Like there still needs to be, I think, at least anecdotally from me, and I know we were talking about going out to eat, John, right? Like, and you're saying that these restaurants are packed and full.
Yeah, everybody's,
so I think that people are starting to feel safer, right?
Yep.
Like, but I also think there's some messaging, this potential messaging behind, I don't know if everybody's ready for it yet, but kind of wasted time. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, we've got one life. We've got a finite amount of years here. We just spent 18 months kind of like not doing anything, right? So, but at the same time, we're doing it safely, right? So I've seen a lot of marketing messages around retail locations. They still have that safety message a little bit, to saying, hey, you don't have to wear a mask in here, but our employees still are. We're still making sure that these kinds of things happen, and I think that's kind of instilling trust into, the group that still a little leery about going out. But
I saw a gum commercial recently that, it wasn't a TV
what
ad.
Flavor
it was I don't know, whatever you wanted it to be. And so they, I think they captured an interesting concept of just what we talked about, people kind of coming out. They showed people unshaven and, in their robes, and they got dressed and they went out, and it was, everyone was really enjoying themselves. And I think it kind of went viral. I think if companies can capture that energy and that message, I think it's interesting concept, and you have to make it fit for your business and your customers. But I think, these are the kind of things that we talked about as being current and interesting to people.
Yeah.
Well, I would think it'd be good for you right now in the world of marketing, good for us too, and all companies. But everybody's had to reinvent themselves. You know, we had a distribution model of this, and this. You know, you think of restaurant,
Totally.
everybody comes in.
Yep.
Maybe they have a patio, maybe they don't. Now everybody's kind of got a patio
Yeah.
because
And a QR code.
exactly.
Right.
You know, so I think it's a good time to, in your world of marketing, to look at new ideas, or they're probably a little more open to those new ideas now
Yeah.
than they were a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
because they've been forced to change how they're going to attract the customer, how they're going to create that great experience, and ultimately sell their product and make money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen that. We've seen as clients come back, they're much more open to new ideas exactly because of that, because they've had to pivot. And with the pandemic, they don't have a choice. You either close your doors or you change, right?
Well, and I think I think a lot of them are even thinking, I think of some insurance organizations or whatever, right? They don't usually want to move off the dime. Well, we've done it for 50 years. We have all these
Conservatism.
systems, and they're not fantastic, but they're at least working. Maybe through the pandemic, they were saying, hey, we're going to have to make a change.
Yeah.
Now it's over. Is there that fear, Chad, of going back to, well, it's over. We could kind of go back and do what we have to do now, and make it work just like we did before. I think that's the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think you see that a lot. You see that a lot of people are really into how they've done it before. And we hear it in our industry, and I know we talk about you guys here in your industries. We've done this. But what is that missed opportunity, right?
Exactly.
So if you're shut your door to a marketing strategy, if you shut your door to a new piece of software, if you shut your door to a new policy, procedure, whatever, you're missing out on that opportunity. It doesn't save you money. Does it make your processes more efficient? Does it help you maintain customers or retain employees? All those things are positive things, but I guess it's some people are concerned about the heavy lifting part or that change part, and there's a lot of things out there that they don't have to do a whole lot.
Well, that rarely works in business, right? I mean, the businesses that survive are the ones that look at every significant change as an opportunity to change faster than their competitors, help their customers in a different way, and reinvent themselves. And so, so now's another great time.
Yeah, it's good. Sure.
And I never get it either. Why would we not check into something?
Yep.
It's not going to cost us anything, but it could make things a lot better. But there's always that fear. Well, it's a high pressure sale, right? You get a marketing piece, for example, and go, well, that's just a high pressure sell. I've got to call somebody. They're going to put me in a headlock, and make me do something. But I look at, even for us, we get calls for vendors all the time, all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And what's it hurt to listen?
Yeah.
I mean, worst case, you say, no, I'm not interested. Best case, maybe you close more business, or, you create a better experience for that customer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, Adam, I want to thank you. I think we had a good discussion today. We covered a lot of ground. We covered just the health insurance market in general.
Yep.
We talked about ways to market to them, whether it be digitally or other ways to get their attention in the clutter. We talked about how to capture people's attention in a new environment and be a part of current news. So I do appreciate your time. It was a fun discussion. Thank you,
Yep.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Adam.
guys.
I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Super enjoyed it. But before I go, I kind of brought you guys a little gift.
Present.
Those are
What do we have here?
squares.
Did I get first pick?
Pocket squares.
Obviously.
Yeah. So something that we use just as fun, silly giveaways, and the people that wear jackets.
Nothing silly about a pocket
Nice.
square.
But trying to up your fashion game.
There you go.
Always in need.
There it is.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks,
No
Adam.
problem.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
You
Yep.
bet.